Okay. Oh gosh. Dan, you're just there. Everyone's just here. Wow, there's more people than I'm used to. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am here with Jason from Hooper's Beta, which is very exciting. If you saw, we did a video on your channel where we did this 9C test and you got 29 points on your score. I got 25 points, and those kind of didn't really correspond to how we climb in relation to each other.
Just because I climb worse.
We thought it would be fun to get back together and do some on-the-wall technique and mental ability tests, and then some off-the-wall strength and mobility assessments to see if we can spot any differences that are notable.
I think it'll be excellent because the off-the-wall drills will be easy to highlight any specific discrepancies, which you may not see on the wall because climbing is so much more convoluted. Whereas on the wall, we'll have, especially Dan's help, to see how we do with our technique and with our movement, and even the mindset, because maybe I just get scared on slab stuff at the top, whereas you don't care and you're just like, facade.
If you have any glaring deficits in any of these exercises, it might just point to something that you could improve that might help you on the wall, but it's not like we're using these exercises to train for climbing. All right, so now we're gonna go on the wall and compare styles, compare techniques, you know, how we do things differently or the same. This will be really fun. We're also gonna try to flash problems and see how our route reading is.
Okay, number one, kind of right from the get-go here, we see Anna is really turned in on this drop knee, which is letting her kind of get further to the right, keep as much weight as possible on this foot, and get a good angle to pull through this side pull. Jason, meanwhile, is kind of just straight on with the knee, which is letting him pull out on the undercling, but not really through it too much. And it gets him into a line. We got arrows everywhere, guys. Arrows for days. Come and get it. This is going to force Jason to kind of like jump his left foot up, while Anna's able to pull on sort of smoothly and efficiently. That said,
don't say it.
he gets to do this sweet dyno.
But look how static I am.
So, as you can hear Anna pointing out in the background here, she gets to be all static and sport climber smooth. Really nice balance between all 3 points here, taking kind of advantage of everything that the setters have offered. Meanwhile, Jason is just like, I see a jug and I am out. That said, hanging out in this kind of like 90-degree lock-off here is probably a little harder than it needs to be. And I think if possible, he'd probably be happy to sag down a little lower and plant a foot on top of this starting hold. But it's another example of Anna's flexibility really coming into play so that she's able to continue supporting this movement off of the lower foot, while Jason is like 8 inches above that. He's actually in a nice spot too. Like he's loaded up on the jug, he's perched on the foot, and he's set up to kind of go on up to this next hold. But because Anna's able to maintain that balance between points, she kind of goes to this sort of intermediate cone thing, which is going to provide her with a bit of a down pull and give her a little bit more support as she sets up into the side pulling jug. Jason, though, has kind of just transitioned directly into this nicely opposed, nicely balanced position. And this is probably the way that I personally would do this. I don't think that it's in any sense better, but I just like the quick and easy movements between nicely balanced position. Jason, with actually a really nice display of flexibility here. Boop. Yeah. Brings that knee all the way up to his chest. That said, he's pulling his knee up into his chest here and not really out to the side. And so maybe he needs to keep working on his Frogger stretches and things and working on that side-to-side mobility. Jason gets a high foot, totally perched on that chicken head, and he's ready to rock and keep climbing up and over the boulder. Anna, meanwhile, spotted this awesome bench. And boom, full sit, sneaky match, donezo.
I'm such a comp climber.
Such a comp climber.
This corner one, it's supposed to be like the beginner / intermediate category, so it can't be harder than V5, I don't think, but it's scary at the top.
That wasn't so bad.
Jason's sweating over here. Good hip flexibility goes really a long way to being able to take full advantage of the positions. And something that we noticed as we're kind of looking through these videos is Anna does the entire route in the time that it takes Jason to match the finishing hold. So there is something of a speed discrepancy here. It's like this is a kind of weird sort of scary position. It's a little bit high and it kind of feels like you're gonna hit the volumes. So by being able to get into this like slightly higher, more down pressing stance, you're able to just comfortably and quickly bop bop up here. Meanwhile, even after Jason kind of like solidifies the foot, it's still like a little tenuous. He's really trying to kind of push in there. It's flexibility, and also actually look at the sequence a little bit, right? Like he is trying to kind of undercling this thing, and he's trying to like get set and sort of reach up. So I think this might actually be a little bit of a beta issue as well. So you take way more opportunity to like, you're palm pressing this thing rather than trying to like cup and undercling it like he is. And so because of that, you're able to keep the left foot loaded, which gives you a little bit more ability to kind of maneuver the right foot. See that? Mm-hmm. And then by continuing to press on it, you don't bail to the high hand, the finishing hold immediately. And so this lets you get really nice and settled. So see how he's not able to keep adjusting it because he's all the way up in this like kind of press position that he can't quite reach.
Yeah.
And so you're taking, like, look at the way that he's grabbing this, right? He's like kind of underclinging and taking all the force into his right hand, which is forcing him to be super bent over to the right. And so because he's so lean this way, it's like actually pretty extremal to bring the knee up like this. But because you stay on this lower hold, even though you are kind of bent over, the relative angles between like his sort of hip to neck and then hip to knee is actually less forgiving than your like slightly more open position here. So I think you're both more flexible, but you're also choosing a better line. But you also then flip to this palm press, which he doesn't really do or take advantage of. See how he kind of just like skips past it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he's, in sort of simplest terms, he's a move further along with his hands than he is with his feet, which is making this just quite difficult to establish. And so by sort of continuing to provide support for your feet while you're getting them nice and set, you're able to just ping on up here to the finish. Oh, where is it? There you go. We gotta look at those smiles real quick. You guys are psyched. Look at that. Climbing is great. Aww. Aww.
Now we're in the cave roofy area because I think it'll be cool to see what the difference between Jason and my climbing is on a style that I feel like uses a bit more like strength and power, which we've seen in previous tests that Jason has a little bit more of. This will be fun.
So you can't, unfortunately this is a hard angle to see this, but like you want to be sort of facing the hand that you're pulling in on. That's something that comes up a lot in the Hooper's Beta videos. It's just going to be stronger to start with, but it also actually gets a little unsafe on your shoulder the more it kind of rotates away there. By being kind of like externally rotated here and starting to face the hand he's going to in advance, Jason is in a somewhat disadvantaged position. Being a boulder, Jason is getting loaded up and taking sort of full advantage of the hands here. You can see him kind of biceps bent, chest kind of facing up towards the hold. So this is a very strong, solid position, but it's also one that costs a lot of energy. Meanwhile, you're taking more advantage of this sort of lean back, kind of relaxed, locked joint, drop knee position, hallmark of a sport climber. Yep, kind of resting your way through it and just bending as much as you need to. When he's kind of set up here, he's able to and kind of knows that he can just isolate and pull through this kind of juggy undercling thing. This is just a clean, sensible way to do this. There's nothing wrong with this. But I like that you take like really full advantage of what's kind of offered you and get another drop knee in here and manage to just kind of like sneak your way through it, where he's being a little bit more efficient with his movement patterns, but a little bit more just like physical. He's now off balance. You see him place this left foot here. It's kind of hard to see through his body. But this is setting him up to be kind of loading same hand, same foot, kind of in a plane, which is going to be a little bit of like a barn door moment. You, however, step through, and by kind of getting this sort of like cross body tension and putting your left foot out, you're now balanced around that left hand again. And so when he goes for this hold, there's a bit of kind of like momentum coming away and he has to catch it. He's still like nice and strong in this position, but there's just more momentum to dissipate and a little bit of like a need to snatch, which is not as easy as it could be. Meanwhile, your setup really balanced and coming really static and easy. Because Jason is driving off of that left foot, the sort of momentum issues are even more obvious than on the initial settling move, and so as he hits it, everything's kind of swinging out to the left, and he's kind of rotating on this axis. But you, driving through the foot, are still like fairly pinned just by the left hand and the right foot while the left leg stabilizes. This is something that you kind of have to decide on a climb by climb basis. He's saving a little bit of time and a foot move at the cost of a little bit of power and a little bit of swing. Sometimes this is damning, other times it's quite efficient. From here though, because your right foot is on, you're able to step up with this high left foot and bring in a sneaky effective toe hook, which lets you come in and match quite easily and stably. This is really where things start to be kind of a problem for Jason. Because he has his left foot on, it doesn't necessarily occur to him to match feet and bring in a really high foot, but he sees that he has this kind of stem foot off to the side. This could, especially with a tight drop knee, work really quite well, but being a little tired and a little indecisive here, he ends up cutting and wasting a fair amount of energy, which kind of sabotages the whole operation. You know, it's like suddenly he's stalling out, fishing around, trying to figure out what he wants to do. So ultimately he comes back into a nice position, kind of turned in and anchored down on that right hand. But it's hard to maintain tension on his foot. Partially that's because he's in this in-between stance here. See how he's neither open nor closed, but his knee's just driving straight into the wall. So as he starts to do the move, the knee tracks into the wall. You can kind of see a little rebound there. Even though he doesn't hit it, it's just in this range where he can't maintain that anymore. If he had been drop kneed, he'd be able to shift along the wall. If he was in a square position, he'd be able to kind of clamp in and shift to the right with his hips while his knee stays pinned. But in this case, it's kind of an unfortunate middle ground, and his feet cut right as he comes in, and he comes kind of swinging off. With your high left foot, you're able to comfortably hang on this. You're not going to swing out from the wall because you have the toe hook kind of holding you in. And once you arrive on this side pull, you're already preloaded with opposition. So you're able to come into sort of like a nice preloaded position, and it's got you really well set up to sneak into this next drop knee. At this point, Jason unfortunately is out of the picture. Go up to this hold, you get over it, but unfortunately your foot is cut at the same time and you kind of fall off. So kind of zooming in on our last survivor. What ends up happening is that you're now in the same kind of issue which Jason is, which you're kind of in this middle zone where you're neither particularly square nor drop kneed. You settle back to an open position, but you have kind of a small timing issue, which is because you haven't traveled far enough to the left before you let go of the left hand, you're still kind of pulling on the toe. You haven't transitioned all the way over to be able to push on it in the same kind of line, and so you have this brief moment where you're kind of tugging on the hold as you're generating, and you just kind of pull your toe off rather than being able to stand across and like fully sort of squat on top of it. I mean, there's nothing grossly wrong here, it's just a small timing thing. Quite a bit different than like actual rounded micros, but it might be easier to set up.
Hazelnut.
That's after a
It's a perfect snack.
Anna.
Do you go from a normal hazelnut to a dark hazelnut?
Anna hazelnut.
This is a straddle test, which tests our flexibility on the side splits.
So that'll be testing the length of your hip adductors or your inner groin muscles.
And you can see it in climbing with like STEMI problems or anytime you have to like reach a foot that's kind of more lateral.
So pure straddle, legs straight.
Straight, okay.
Straight. Because, I mean, if I warmed up a little more, I might get a little deeper, but like you can kind of finagle it too, and if I bend my legs a little bit, I can go even a little bit further.
She's definitely lower.
Yeah. And it looks like you feel stronger in that position than I do.
Oh, I'm shaking.
Okay, so just another like little hip flexibility test is going to be just sitting into like the garland's pose or that deep squat. And then if you look at both of us, if you want to come actually to the side here, though, you might see perhaps more like spine flexion for me. Anna might be a little bit straighter in her spine, but that's going to be highlighted when we try the overhead version of this with a bar. So let's stand back up, raise it overhead, and then try. You can just go a little bit outside shoulder width, and then try and do that again, seeing how deep you can get. She looks a little more comfortable than me.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the same amount of extension in my spine or in my shoulders, so I can't sit in that position quite as comfortably as you can. So you can see how if I'm trying to get like a high foot while both my hands are overhead, I'm gonna be a little more limited because I don't have as much flexibility in that position. If you do this test and like if this has to come like way far forward or like down here, you have really bad shoulder or thoracic mobility. If you can't just get into this position at all, then it may be more just pure hip mobility. You can even see like when Anna does it, she's like all the way in between her legs, so her center of gravity is really nice. I have to work a little bit harder to get my center of gravity there. Another kind of hip mobility test, a little bit of strength, but oh man, requires a lot of hip flexion and adduction mobility. Really good for like especially slab climbers might be good at this.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, let's see.
Let's see.
So go into like a little side squat, go into a side lunge and see if you can keep your heel on the ground. Oh God. I got it. I look good, right?
Yeah.
How you doing? You
Yeah,
all
I'm
right?
good. Is this foot supposed to be on the ground too?
Yeah, it's supposed to be on the ground.
Like that. Okay.
Okay, and then try and stay low and shift to the other side. And this is where I can't actually sit on my heel. I don't have enough hip flexion to do that. I have to rock over up onto my toe. If I go to the heel, down I go.
Okay.
Anna's chilling.
Really, the focus should be on like the heel versus the toe, because if you can't get onto your heel at all, that's just showing like a hip flexion limitation. Whereas a lot of people are going to be able to get to here, which is also realistic for climbing because you're on your toe a little more, but you don't need nearly as much hip flexion mobility to sit over the foot there.
The gym is opening, so we have switched to lab mics. Okay, what's next?
One-arm push-ups on pinkies only.
Yeah, I think that'll really demonstrate climbing.
Yeah, good job.
So we had mentioned in the 9C test that maybe the 20 mils weren't going to be a full picture view of finger strength because, like, well, for me specifically, a lot of the climbs I do have really tiny edges. So maybe small edges would be a better kind of supplementary or additional test for finger strength. And so that's what we're going to do right now.
Just like out the cuts with like gym jugs to like fresh 6 mils.
Yeah.
I'll be impressed.
Starting to warm up at the 10 mils. Feels good. Yeah. That sentence.
The 10 mil warm up.
We've been climbing a little bit.
Heyday.
I danced. That counts.
Whoa, I don't even know how to 3-finger drag. I like can't even do a 3-finger drag.
Okay.
Painful or just weak feeling?
Or I just don't know. It just isn't working.
Let's see.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Like that.
So more proof that I have really bad technique.
Yeah, I'm trying to half crimp, but I have a feeling that half crimp is not quite gonna work for me. I think I might have to full crimp that.
Come on.
Yes, dude, yes.
That was so good though.
I like let go.
lifted.
I got nervous. I held it, and I was like, no, that's good. That's good.
So that or the Jeopardy music, you know? Yes, come on. 4, one more.
Oh yeah, I could just keep going, I think, yeah.
That's like sugar in the paper, right?
No, I don't like these.
Come on, dude.
You got it.
Come on. Yes. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. One more. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go. We're gonna try the 6 mils with weights now and just see, I guess, where I tap out. Dan has put weight on me.
No problem. Yes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Easy.
Okay.
Nice. Good job.
Sorry. that mellow? Was that,
that
like,
was
kind of limit?
pretty. It's so hard to tell with the micro crimps because it just starts to hurt.
Yes. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. And that was definitely more than 4 because you started kind of like halfway between, but like 4.5. Yeah, sick. I wouldn't generally train at 4 seconds, but 4 is normally a good amount to test like your max ability.
I found it. Look, look, look. Ready for this? Ready for this?
Oh God, beautiful. For some reason, that just did not fit in my my brain. I was like, what? How do I?
That was interesting. We had very different results. You were so strong on your 3-finger drag. That was really cool to see.
Yeah, and you crushed it on the full crimps.
The full crimps. I feel like that makes sense for like our respective climbing styles. I think that really like rounds out the Magnus like 9C 20 mil edge challenge because that's just like one grip, one type, and it's like cool to see different grip types on different hold types.
If you can like full crimp everything, but you can't open hand or drag it, it could be an indication of either just training styles that you just haven't trained that hold enough, so your just body isn't used to it, or the drag position is much more dependent on the flexor digitorum profundus, so you could have a little strength deficit there.
So now we're gonna go on to the campus rungs, and we're gonna just kind of do a power engagement test, right? So I am the one talking because I know about campusing. But we're just gonna do one big pull and try to slap as high as we can on both hands, see if there's any discrepancy there.
It's really more of a compliment to the max pull-up that was done in the 9C test, because this is sort of like the velocity and coordination extension of that. It doesn't quite carry over as much to fingerboarding, so that's the limiting factor for this is almost never fingers.
Let's do it. Is that easy to measure if we're different heights?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent you could just divide it by your reach, but it's not really quite that, right? I think possibly almost wingspan would be better, except for that is broadly dictated by chest width. But I think if you were to just divide it by height, it would be not terribly wrong.
So this test is much more about power, so about how quickly you can generate force to move up to a hold that might be further away.
Another thing that's kind of interesting with these is, as relevant to climbing performance as they are, there's typically not a huge degree of separation either, because a lot of strong climbers basically can pull 1.5 reliably, but then people who can do 1.6 are substantially fewer, and above that typically are either people who are very strong and very tall or like World Cup climbers. So it's just a rapid drop off on the curve there, you know? Thanks. One of the things to look at with a lot of tests, but this test in particular, is a lack of symmetry between sides. It's not always going to tell you anything, as with all these tests, but it does indicate that something may be off, because when you're doing these big power slaps from a matched stance, the generation is fairly full body, and so it shouldn't be as affected by any relevant weaknesses from side to side. And so if you're having a substantially different outcome from left-hand slap to right-hand slap, more than like a couple inches, it suggests that for some reason you're not generating the same on both sides, and that can carry over like pretty directly to your climbing.
So just to kind of recap or reiterate, being really good at these specific tests does not mean you are going to climb V10, V11, V12. That wasn't the purpose. More so, there's a lot of different ways you can evaluate your climbing skill and technique and your physical capabilities as well. And some of these tests just highlight some of those deficits that you may encounter, in which case those might impact your climbing ability. And so if you have any really glaring deficits with any of the tests that we did today, it might be worthwhile working on to improve your climbing.
There's definitely so many ways you can measure like different strengths that apply to climbing. Just because climbing is so full body as well, and there's just so much happening, it's kind of impossible to create a single test really, or like a group of tests that will accurately tell you what you're climbing on the wall.
I think I realized from this still, like I love working on my flexibility, and I'm gonna keep working on it. And I have just still more work to do with my technique, but I feel pretty confident in my fingers.
You have such good fingers. Oh my God, you're so strong. It's amazing. We're like opposite climbers.
I was just gonna say that. I need a little bit more of your technique and flexibility, and then I'll be good to go.
Yeah.
I just gotta tried climbing really hard stuff. Maybe that's how you do it.
You just scare it into you.
Scare the flexibility.
Given the abundance of possible tests that you could do, if one of these things goes a lot more poorly than you expected especially, it makes sense to possibly look into more tests in that area. So if the finger strength is just way off, then possibly looking into some more and different ways to test that, possibly like pinch block or like tension lifts or something like that. And equally, if somehow the 1 or 2 flexibility tests go terribly, doing like a more full suite of tests for that makes more sense. So I wouldn't necessarily just try one of these and then jump to conclusions, but it may be a sign to do further investigation.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dan, Jason, and Emil all from Hooper's Beta. Oh, that was so lovely. Thank you for doing this with me. And if you haven't already checked out their channel, go do that. Look at some of the collabs that we've done in the past. And y'all just do such a good job of making educational, informative, useful videos for climbers. I always learn so much when watching your videos and take a lot away from it. So thank you again for being here. And I'll see y'all later. Hey everyone, as you can imagine, this episode had a lot of excess footy because when you put Jason, Emil, Dan, and I together, we just kind of kept climbing. So not only do I have extra footage for Dan's breakdown analysis, I also have extra climbs that weren't even analyzed and some extra exercises. If you want to see that, go to my Patreon. It's on a give as you can basis. For as low as $2, you can have access to everything. So thank you. Check that out. Subscribe to Hooper's Beta, subscribe to me, it really helps, and I'll see you later.